Wonderful. So we will give it just a moment for everyone to log in. I see that we have a couple of people here with us, so we'll give it just a moment.
Okay.
How are you doing, Sarah?
Oh, good.
Good, good. As well as can be expected.
Yes, I think that's about it at this point. But overall, it's been a good day.
Excellent. Excited that it's Friday.
I don't know. It's hard to tell anymore what day of the week it is. We're just sort of on repeat.
I can understand that. It is difficult to tell what day it is. Our programs help a lot. I know it's Tuesday when I do our Tuesday treasure, and I know it's Friday when we do our author talks and our chats. So that helps. It helps. Excellent. So we will give it just a moment more. We do have a couple of our participants with us. Excellent. We always get these things started right on time, but we don't actually begin our programming until a few minutes later, just because we want to make sure everyone is with us.
A good consideration.
Yes, yes. We try to include everyone that we can. And this will, as I think most of our attendees know, this will go up on our Facebook page afterwards. The recording is always available, so you can come back and watch again. If you think of another question while we are broadcasting, please do enter it into our chat. And again, once it goes up on Facebook, you can enter it into the comments there. We will monitor those and answer any that come across later on. So I think we will probably get started. I, of course, always have my customary intro, so that'll take just a moment, and I will let anyone that needs to join us have just a moment before we start our content anyway. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, my name is Nicole Carpenter. I'm the Director of Programs and Education for the Westport Museum for History and Culture. Tonight's program, as all of our other virtual programming, is brought to you free of charge. We do always have a suggested donation of $5, but we understand it is a difficult time, so we ask you to support the museum however you can. This includes also following us and liking us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter. You can follow us at Westport History, and on Instagram at Westport History Museum. And if you give us a follow and a like on those platforms, you'll always see when we are holding programs just like this. So tonight I am joined by my museum staff colleague, Sara Krasne. Sara is the current volunteer archivist at the museum, and she has volunteered with the museum since 2013. She grew up in Western Pennsylvania and completed her genealogy training at Boston University. She's been a resident here in Westport for many years. She's raising her two beautiful little boys, and she is a history nerd, I can attest to that. And she also plans to continue her studies in museum sciences. So tonight, Sara and I are going to discuss the new book that is coming out called Images of America, Westport, that the museum has created. Sara was very instrumental in getting that book published. So we have a bit of a Q&A discussion that we are going to go back and forth answering those. And then there will be time at the end to ask your own questions of Sara if you would like any of those answered. So we are going to kick off. And again, enter your questions anytime in the comments space here, and we will get to those towards the end of our program. So first, Sara, can you tell our audience a little bit more about the book, what it contains, what they might see, what to expect?
So overall, it's a visual history book, and it starts out at the town's earliest foundings, and it just sort of progresses through to the 20th century. And there's a variety of different scanned documents, maps, photographs, and postcards that are largely from the museum's collections. And we just put them all together to create a well-rounded history of the town of Westport. We start off with, mentions of the native peoples and the Bankside farmers, which a lot of local Westport people will be familiar with. We move on to the Revolution, and then find the founding of the town in 1835, as officially Westport. And then, on through the years. And there's, not just images with captions, but there's also at the beginning of each chapter an introductory to the images, which really goes a little bit more in depth into what you're going to be seeing in that chapter. So it just kind of, it's a little bit more comprehensive than previous versions of these types of books, which were usually just the images with a small caption.
You mentioned it was a visual history book. What kind of images are included in the books? Is it postcards, photographs, drawings, illustrations?
It's kind of all of that. There's maps, there's photographs that are, archival photographs from our collection, as well as postcards from the collection, and scanned documents, such as we've got a scan of the original land grant for the Bankside farmers that's a part of the book, so that you can sort of get a feel for, what those first words were, that gave people sort of permission to be settling on the land that eventually became Westport.
Where did the idea for this book come from? Is this something that the staff decided to do? And who on the staff and outside of the museum was involved in the process of getting this book published?
So we were approached by Arcadia Publishing. They've done a series of Images of America books in the past, and the museum itself hadn't participated before, but they approached us because they really wanted to get museums and historic institutions to be a part of this new run of books. So when they approached us, it became really a full staff project. Myself as archives manager, I was, really a big part of it because I know the collection very well, as well as our executive director, Ramin Ganeshram, other staff like yourself, Nicole, getting history of the town from your perspective, and then also our volunteers. And I just want to give a shout out to my archives volunteers because I haven't seen them since the beginning of March now. So I miss working with you all. So come back soon. But really, as the organization as a whole, we really got together, and other volunteers that aren't necessarily archives volunteers, but do volunteer at the museum, were also helpful in getting the history of certain aspects. Some of the photos, we may not have known everything that we wanted to, so making sure that we're researching and getting all of that information before we publish anything about them was really important.
How long did this process take? It sounds like it's a very comprehensive, or at least a very wide look at Westport's history. How long does something like that really take the museum staff?
So we started the process about 2 years ago. So it's a little over 2 years since we've started that the book is finally going to be coming out. So some of it I had to go back and reread and look at as we were getting to the final edits. I'm like, oh yeah, we did put that in there. So it took a long time to go from beginning to end and really get through all of the history. But yeah, surprisingly, a lot of time went into it.
I can believe that. Many of our exhibits and other projects take us many years to really pull together, so I'm not at all surprised. The book contains photographs and other visual materials that you were talking about from Westport's past, obviously, and you also described that it covers certain events that have occurred in town. What do you consider to be your favorite photograph or group of photos from the book? And then maybe what's the most maybe significant or maybe locally known event that's shown in the book?
I don't know. I can't pick a favorite. There's, I'm kind of biased in that, when I'm working in the archive and because I'm such a history nerd, I do enjoy looking at all of, the history that's there in front of me. And there's something to love about every image, really. So it's too hard for me to pick favorites. It's like asking which of my children is my favorite. It's not fair. But I like some of the images of older buildings that aren't in existence anymore, because you can't just, walk down the street and find them anymore. They're just not there. So looking at those ones tends to be something that I can say that I enjoy a little bit more. But as far as uh, better known subjects or events that take place that are covered, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's it's hard too, because I'm looking at it from where I sit, and because I'm, in Westport history every day, looking at and researching different aspects, things that I know, maybe not everybody in Westport would know. But in general, I think just some of the maybe the aspects around the founding of the town are probably significant, and the revolution, people, especially because, in the bicentennial year, there were a lot of celebrations and things and reenactments, and people around that are still around in town now will remember that, and have been involved in it in a way that it really resonates with them. So images of the Minuteman statue and bits about the revolution, I think, are always very popular whenever we talk about them at the museum. So those bits, I think, people really like in the book, as well as images from, the resort areas, some of the hotels and beaches and longshore area. I think people really enjoy those images as well.
Now, Sarah, can you talk a little bit about the difference between archival photos that are both taken by a professional photographer, but also from personal collections versus postcards?
So a photo that would be an archival photo, whether it's taken by a professional or an amateur photographer, these are photographs that tend to be a little bit more personal in nature. So even the cover image of our book was from, it was taken by an amateur photographer, somebody from the Allen family, actually, and they donated that to us actually fairly recently, within the past few years. But they, it's a family photo, basically. And those things are, those types of photos aren't always as widely viewed. And so they can be a little bit more intimate or show a different side of something that isn't normally put out for public consumption. Whereas, postcards and images that are produced by professional photographers for, specific advertising campaigns and things like that, tourist photos, that are meant for consumption by the general public. Those ones tend to be of, more landmarks or well-known buildings. So like the YMCA building in town, which is now part of the shopping center, the old town hall, or even, the new town hall. Those things tend to be on postcards a little bit more often. You can find some people who published their personal photographs as postcards, but it wasn't something that was done quite as often. So most of the postcards that you find are of, more widely known areas of town at different periods in time. There's, I was going to say, there's one photo that's part of our collection that's not in the book that I particularly like, that was definitely something that was I don't know that it was a family photo, but the individuals aren't identified in it. The only description I have was written on the envelope by a volunteer sometime after it was donated in a processing, time, and it's just called Five Grim Ladies and a Man. And it's taken at a time period of time where smiling in photographs was not encouraged because of long exposure times, but the poor ladies that are in this photo, they just look miserable. I don't know if it was a hot day, but it's one of those photos where you look at it and you're like, I can relate.
I've seen that photo and it's fabulous.
Yeah.
And then finally, Sarah, what can a book like this and other visual kind of history books that are taken from primary photographs and other visual representations, what can books like these tell a reader about Westport and also of larger historical events from a global perspective?
So we can cover aspects of the town from the time of colonization forward. And we have commentaries on the native peoples and slavery, and those topics don't always appear in history books, especially in New England. It sort of gets, over time, it had been glossed over, only relegated to a couple of sentences or left out altogether. And thankfully, it's becoming more commonplace for historic institutions and histories to include these people a little bit more holistically. And I think, especially in light of current events and what we're going through right now, it's important for us as historic institutions to talk about these subjects and bring them up as part of our everyday educational experience, because one of our core missions at the museum is to educate our community, and by talking about not only the things that we sort of all know, but also some of the things that have been shunted aside, it really opens up the conversation more, and then we can all learn something new and appreciate, the full history of the town, in a way that really resonates not just with our local community, but with our community abroad as well.
So we have some audience questions. If you have any more, please enter them in the chat. And the first that I have here is, what percentage of the museum's photo and archival collection is in this book? And are there a lot more?
Oh, you mean so how many of our actual photos are in the book?
Yeah, maybe what percentage of the book is ours, and then maybe what percentage of our collection is actually in the book. Two different questions. Yeah.
Okay. So in the book, it's probably about 90% taken from the museum's collection. Some of the things, like the original document for the land grant for the town, or for the Bankside farmers, that's not part of our collection. That's part of the state collection, and I think there's another copy of it at the Fairfield Museum. And we've borrowed that image so that we could tell this story. And there's a few other ones that are from various other organizations, but yeah, I'd say about 90% of the book is from our collection. As far as certainly not our entire collection is part of this book. There were a lot of things that we actually had to cut from the book because we were limited to the number of pages that we could have. So I think I ended up cutting probably 50 or so images out of the book because there just wasn't enough room for it. I would say this is kind of the tip of the iceberg of our collection, and it's certainly doesn't even get into the historic documents and a lot of the artwork that's part of our collection, and I mean the textile collections as well. If anybody who's listening tonight is a fan of our Tuesday's Treasures, we've been going through some of our textiles as well. So there's a lot more to the collection than what you'll see in the book, but it's a good flavor of what we do have.
I have, of course, as a museum staff member, I have seen our vault and our collection storage areas, and I don't know how we would possibly ever show everything that we have, but we are trying really, as you mentioned, Sarah, with our other programs, to show as much as we possibly can. And on that note, do you want to tell our audience a little bit about why we can't show everything? Just as a little aside.
Well, I mean, some things just aren't in a good condition to be shown. They need more preservation, and so they're very, very fragile. And so certain things we don't want to handle more than is absolutely necessary. And there are other things that just don't lend themselves to be shown in sort of a virtual format, or some things that just can't be scanned because they're just too large for our capabilities. You know, certainly there are definitely documents that we have that are old and fragile, and I wouldn't want to bring them out of the environment that they're, you know, currently housed in. They need to be handled a little bit more delicately. And I mean, we're trying to digitize a lot of things in our collection to make it more accessible. There are definitely things that we can scan and get into our database program. We're trying to do that, but it's a long process because, you know, we're limited on volunteers, and especially now when we have to be working from home more than not, it's just difficult.
Yes, that is very, very true. The last question that we have, unless we have some more answer or asked in our chat, do you ever correct the photos or alter them in some way?
So I'm going to say that not in the way that somebody might ask, like, have you photoshopped the Loch Ness Monster into the Saugatuck River? That's not happening. But I am, my undergrad, I was trained as a printer and a graphic artist and a photographer. So I have some, you know, skills to be able to work with the scanned images. I wouldn't do anything to the original images, but once an image has been scanned, I can do a little bit of work for tonal correction and the occasional, like, fixing a crease or a crack in a photograph, maybe removing some blemishes that are on the original. But, you know, I would never, you know, try to add something or take away something from a photograph to alter it in a way that would change the story that that photo is telling. That would go against everything that we're really trying to do here as an organization, and the ethics of showing our collection.
We do have another question, and it is on the preview online on Amazon. It does not show any photos from the last 3 chapters. Will those be able to be seen in any samples?
We don't control the previews for what's online. The publisher, I think, does that, but I don't know that there'll be any, I don't know that they'll change it over time. I think probably what they have up is what they have up. So it's just a way to encourage people to, I think, purchase the book, but we don't have any control over that. That's all in the hands of the publisher and maybe Amazon. but they didn't consult or ask us what preview images we would want or what pages to be previewed.
So I think that's all of the questions that we have this evening. Again, if anyone has any more, they are more than welcome to put them in the comment bar that will be available on the Facebook recording as soon as that is posted.
Oh, somebody actually texted me personally, and they want to know how they can. They're like, Sarah, tell me how I can buy the book. So it is available through Amazon, and we would encourage you to use smile.amazon.com and register your nonprofit of choice as, I think that they still have us as the Westport Historical Society. That's our parent name. You can designate us as your nonprofit of choice to donate to. Smile.amazon.com will allow you to give a portion of your purchases all over Amazon to the nonprofit of choice, and we would really like that and appreciate it if you could give it to us.
And that works for any purchases that you have on Amazon, not just of this book.
Yeah, not just of this book, but a lot of purchases on Amazon can count towards that. And then also, we will eventually have it in our gift shop as well, but we don't obviously have it.
I have an update really quickly. We will have the book available for pre-order at a 15% discount of what they are offering it on Amazon. So it is available. I actually have a link for you all. So when it goes up on Facebook this evening, there is a link down below that you will be able to pre-order the book at a much discounted price if you would like. It's actually for sale for $18.35 plus additional tax. And that you can pre-order, and that will be available on August 31st. So the link is live, but it won't be available to pick up at our location until the 31st of August. And there will be more details on that down below and on our website very shortly. I promise.
Yeah, we've been waiting for this to come out for a while, and unfortunately, because of circumstances with the pandemic, it got delayed a little bit, but we're very excited that it's going to be happening soon.
Excellent. So thank you so much, Sarah. Oh, perfect. I thought we had another question, but we're all set. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you everyone for joining us and sitting in on our discussion. I am excited to get my book. I have seen many of these images, but it's exciting to be able to have them at home and have this comprehensive history of Westport, at least through these visual representations. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening, and please join us for our programs that are coming up in the future. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.